Hey everyone, Katie Lip here. Welcome back to Cash is Queen. I am so glad to be back on. It is February in Fairfax, Virginia, where I'm recording from. And we recently had this huge snowstorm where we got a bunch of snow, like 8 to 10 inches of snow, and then we got sleet on top of the snow, which kind of turned into this snow concrete situation where everybody was out hacking at their driveways and sidewalks with metal shovels trying to clear away this snow concrete. And it's just been a little bit of a mess, but it's gotten better recently. The rain has come out, the temperatures have come up, and we are getting close to spring. We're like just on the cusp of spring. The robins are here and we're close. We're close, everybody. So I'm looking forward to warmer temperatures, but I don't know. I like winters in Virginia. They're pretty mild. We usually don't get this type of winter weather with the snow concrete. That's more of a, once every 10 years type of situation. But I'm definitely looking forward to spring in Northern Virginia, DC area. It's just so beautiful here when all the flowers and the birds and the plants come out. So it's coming. We're almost there. It's been a while since I've done an episode, so I wanted to pop on here. I try to block off Fridays for working on my business, and I've just been really busy lately with legal work, and I'm finally sticking to my boundaries and putting a podcast episode out. And what I want to talk to you today about is I want to talk to you about the biggest mistakes I've made as a business owner. And I hope by talking about these mistakes, they will help you grow your business. So I'll talk about 4 of the bigger mistakes that I've been able to identify. And, just know that there's so many mistakes we make along the way. And that's just a part of the journey, right? We're not going to do things perfectly. And all of it is just feedback as we go through our entrepreneurial journey. So let me just get right into it. So the first mistake I've made as a business owner is to label myself as not a money person or not a numbers person. First of all, that's just BS. Yes, numbers are not my favorite thing to do. I never liked math in school. It just was one of my hated subjects. And I think that's just because it never came naturally to me. And the things that did come naturally to me were writing and reading, and I loved history and things like that. And I just, kind of developed this label for myself that I'm quote unquote not a money person, not a numbers person. And that's really a cop out. It's just something I don't really enjoy. And whenever you have something like that in your business that you don't enjoy, I think it's important to do some self-reflection and think, am I the right person to be doing this for my business? And when you do everything in the beginning, when you're starting your business, you stress yourself out and you get to a point where it's just not the best use of your resources to wear all these different hats. And so what I ended up doing with the numbers in my business is I outsourced it. So because it's not my favorite thing to do, I outsourced it. In the very beginning, I was, putting together all the invoices, and I still have to review all the invoices in my law firm, but now I have an operations manager who just so happens to be my husband, Eric. He is good with the numbers stuff. And throughout our whole relationship, he's been the one to work on. He likes investing, knows all about, the stock market. He's in an investment club with my parents through their church, which is really cute. And it's just more of his thing. And you get to a point as a business owner where you just have to be okay with, this is not really my favorite thing to do. And I am going to delegate this to someone else. So bottom line is you need to regularly review your numbers so you have a financially healthy company, but you don't need to be the one who's going in and looking at the QuickBooks or working with your accountant or your bookkeeper, right? You don't have to be the main person doing those things. And I am not the main person doing those things. And even though I was labeling myself that way, I can be a numbers person, right? All of us, like, you can look at numbers. It's not something you have to be allergic to as a business owner. And I think a lot of us as business owners were like, oh, I'm a creative, I'm not a numbers person. Like, come on. Like, in order to have a financially healthy company, you need to look at the numbers of your company regularly and understand what is generating revenue and what is not generating revenue. That's a really important exercise. And that's actually what I do a lot as a business consultant for business owners and law firm owners who want to grow. We pull numbers, we talk about numbers. And so it's just something you need to do, but you don't necessarily have to be the one who's involved day to day with working with the accountant, working with your bookkeeper, what have you. So the labeling I want to get you away from, and I want you to get comfortable with regularly reviewing your numbers so you have a successful and financially healthy company. So that's the first mistake I made, is labeling myself as not a money person or not a numbers person. My second mistake I've made as a business owner is not focusing enough on revenue generating activities. So, hello, social media. So, I spent what I think was too much time on growing social media channels and putting out social media content, when really, yes, it was bringing in business for my law firm and for my business consultancy, but there were other activities that offered me more bang for my buck time wise. And so, of course, these social media outlets are addictive. We all know this, right? They give us, the quick dopamine hits that come with putting information out there, getting that instant feedback from people. But as more and more research comes out on, Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, all of these things, it's not necessarily the healthiest thing we need to be doing with our time. And so what I've done over the years, in the beginning, when I was first starting my business, I was posting on social media a lot, and it wasn't necessarily correlating to, okay, I'm getting leads, I'm getting a high amount of leads. And once I started tracking where my leads come from for my law firm, I noticed that in any given month, I would get, a couple of leads from LinkedIn or a couple of referrals from LinkedIn. And that's good, right? But I was getting over 100 leads from Google searches, and that were coming in because I was doing blog posts and people were finding me through my website. And so what I would say is this: for your business, I would track where your leads come from every month and make sure you're reviewing that information every month so you know what to focus on as far as what's the biggest lead generator for your business. For me, it's by far and above Google. And so I focus on putting out blog posts regularly. I try to do them at least once a month. I was on a good track for a while doing them twice a month. I fall off here and there, and that's okay. It's never going to be perfect, right? And I've also used SEO companies before to put out blog posts and content and things like that. I don't mind doing it myself. When I get the time to do it, again, it's not always going to be perfect, but going back to my point of, my mistake is not focusing enough on revenue generating activities. Once I got the data from my monthly leads that now I track with my team and we go through them every single month, once I got that data to show,
social media is getting me some leads, but it's not getting me the most leads. And so it's okay if I post on social media like once a week or twice a week. I don't need to focus on showing up on social media and being there every single day, because that's not the best use of my time from a revenue generation standpoint. Mistake number 3, and this probably should have been the first mistake, is taking on clients that are not a good fit. Because these clients, if you take on a client that's not a good fit for you, whether it's they want a service that is not exactly in your wheelhouse, but you stretch yourself a little bit to say, oh, well, it's, they're willing to pay, so let me try to figure this out. I don't recommend the figuring it out you know, on the client's dime. That usually does not lead to the best result, right? It can, but it's not something that I recommend. Whether it's a poor fit client because they can't afford your services and you lower your price in order to take them on, I would not recommend doing that. I want to encourage you to say no to people who are not a good fit for your services, whether it's the service you're providing, or maybe it's a personality mismatch or pricing mismatch. Taking on a poor fit client will suck up, in my experience, most of your emotional bandwidth and energy, and it's just not worth it. And you can grow your business much more if you say no to those poor fit clients. And that is hard to do when you want revenue, you're like, oh, well, they're willing to pay, right? And so one of the things I started this year in 2026 is I have a client selection policy and my whole firm has it. And we're all on the same page that here is the process we're going to go through when we are selecting a client. And they need to meet certain criteria. And if they don't meet those criteria, then we refer them out, because it's hard in the moment to make a decision. And it can be helpful to have a framework where it's kind of like that child's toy where you're trying to put different shapes into the holes. And when you have a poor fit client, it's almost like you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole. Like, it just doesn't quite fit. And if you have a framework, okay, we are taking clients that are fit in this circle. We're not taking clients that are these squares. It can be easier in the moment to say no and to make it more automatic, so you don't have to think about it every time and then do mental gymnastics to convince yourself why you need to take a client who's a poor fit. So the last mistake I want to talk to you about, and I hope all of this is helpful to you as you grow your business, just listening to these mistakes and normalizing these mistakes, right? You're going to make them, and that's okay. That's what gives you a foundation to build off of, and it gives you resilience as a business owner. So the fourth mistake is thinking I had to be everything to everyone, which leads, in my experience, to exhaustion and just lack of boundaries. So let me explain the thinking I had to be everything to everyone. So I did a lot of this in the earlier parts of my entrepreneur journey, when I had my law firm and I had my business consultancy, when I wasn't able to sleep, for example. It'd be like 2:00 in the morning and I'd be restless and I, wasn't able to go back to sleep. Instead of just laying there and allowing myself to go back to sleep, because this was sleep time and, this is when I needed to sleep, I would wake up and say, well, I can't sleep. Let me use this time productively to put together a social media video. Okay. You can hear how crazy that sounds. Did not need to be putting together a social media video at 2:00 in the morning. Oh, but I did it. I did those things because I felt like I needed to fill my quote unquote free time with productive activities, and not realizing that I needed more balance. I needed to be resting. Resting is productive. Resting is needed.
at 2 o'clock in the morning when we all should be sleeping. So I felt like I felt like I had stumbled upon a pot of gold in starting my own law firm. And I didn't expect how much easier it would be for me to run a firm and make money doing that instead of working in under somebody else's firm, right? And so I felt like I needed to tell everybody and their mother about entrepreneurship, in particular, tell the ladies, hey, you need to consider this as a career option, starting your own business, because I felt like even though I had a mom who started her own business, a grandfather who started his own business, I just felt like I wasn't cut out for that because I had told myself these lies, basically. So I felt like I needed to spend all my time telling people you should be an entrepreneur, you should start a business, all this. The reality is I did not need to be filling all of my time doing that. I know a lot of people benefited from that, and I'm grateful I did it. I'm grateful I was able to spread that message. But here's a couple of things kind of about that. Number one, I needed to be resting more and not filling all my time thinking I had to be everything to everyone during that era. I also realize now, and actually realized shortly after that era, that not everybody should start a business. Okay? Not everybody should start a business. It is not for everyone. Why? Because it's a lot of pressure. It requires you to work independently without any oversight. And some people are much better suited to not running their own business, especially with a lot of the creative businesses that I see people start. For example, my business consultancy, I would put under, yes, I'm a business consultant, but it requires a lot of marketing and a lot of hustling to explain to people what it is you do and why they should hire you for said service. And it's really hard to get people to buy in to what, whatever that coaching service is, or whatever non-essential service, right? Because coaching it's an extra, it's a non-essential thing. It creates results that are amazing, right? That certainly are worth the price that people pay for them, right? But in running my law firm, I have so many more leads for my law firm versus coaching. Number one, because I spend most of my time on my law firm. But when somebody's reaching out for a lawyer, it is more of an essential service. It's not am I going to hire a lawyer? No, they're going to hire a lawyer because they need a lawyer. And coaching is more of an extra. So going back to the mistake that I think I had made, thinking I had to be everything to everyone, is I felt like I needed to grow my business consultancy in a big way. I felt like I needed to grow my law firm in a big way. Why? Why do we need to grow large businesses, right? Taking a step back and saying, why am I doing these things? Who are they serving? And I've grown very comfortable with having a smaller law firm. I have 5 lawyers, including myself. And instead of knee jerk every time thinking, oh, well, I need to bring on a new lawyer, I need to hire somebody new. No, hold on. Wait a minute. Press pause. Can I use a contractor for this service? So do I have enough work to give to a full-time employee, right? And a lot of times the answer to that question is no. And we're just growing to grow. And because it feels good to tell other people, yes, I'm growing, and to peacock for the masses, right? So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, I would love it if you could share it with somebody who needs to hear it. Maybe you have somebody in your life who recently started a business, who's growing their business. I would love it if you could share this episode with them. I would love it if you could follow or subscribe to the podcast, wherever you're listening to your podcast, so you get notifications when I drop a new episode. If you're not connected with me, Katie Lip, on LinkedIn, please connect with me. I would love to be a part of each other's professional networks. And if you are a female lawyer or entrepreneur, I would love it if you could join my next networking event. So I do quarterly networking events for women in law and business. The next one coming up is Friday, April 10th from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Zoom. I will put the link to sign up in the show notes. And if you connect with me on LinkedIn, you'll be able to see posts that I put out about each quarterly event. And I would love it if you could join me there. It would be great to see your face on Zoom. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care.